Welcome back. There we go. So what you just saw was a little brief explanation of brown bagging for Calgary's kids. And what's important about that to know is that you are part of, keep them on, a major contribution to that charity. In lieu of speakers' gifts, the payments folks are giving to this charity, and in fact spent Monday morning there working, putting lunches together. It's a wonderful charity, and I think, in fact, when I learned about it, I thought more cities should have this exact kind of model. There's no reason why you couldn't build it out. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch and the breakout sessions. It sounds like they were pretty fantastic and hard to choose from, which is what you want when you're organizing a conference. What I want to do right now is just make sure that everybody knows how to operate your polls on your app. So if you can get out your smartphone, I'm just going to walk you through. We've got a live poll to do right now. We actually really do want the answers. So the way this works is go to the session that we're in. So under Agenda, when you pull up the app, you'll see Agenda. Click Agenda. Go to the session that we're in at the moment. That's 1 p.m., rapid fire keynotes. And you'll see when you click on that, polls will show up at the top. Click on polls. And in this case, the poll is, coming out of this morning's session, I feel, well, I like 100% invigorated, although I'm guessing that 2 votes isn't really a very good kind of sample size. Is that you? Oh, it's not working. OK. So, OK, maybe it's not working. But just if you don't know sort of how to get into the polls, you can ask any of the staffers here. And we do want to know what your feedback. So if you have to do it later, feel free to go in later. You just click on whatever session it was and answer that poll. And we do want to know what you think. One little reminder, it's sort of a housekeeping thing, kind of a nagging thing, and that is we're trying to keep things on time. And we have sessions, breakout sessions running right into a session in this space. So we need you to kind of move fast. So getting in and out, if you can, so that we can keep everything on time this afternoon, that would be great. Just a reminder that the Fintech Cup competition will be in the Strand Tivoli room at 2:15. That's for the grand prize of $20,000. You'll return here to this ballroom after your breakout sessions this afternoon. 4:35 is the hard start for a conversation/debate, depends how mad I make Doug Steiner, about sort of many of the issues that we're talking about here. Fintech, the incumbents, the future. And then, of course, we'll wrap up today with a opening day reception. That's in the exhibit room, exhibit hall. It's sponsored by Telplay. And we will announce the FinTech Cup winners at that point. And now it's time for our second round of rapid fire keynotes. How great were those this morning, by the way? No pressure, guys. I'm going to start with Daryl MacMullin. He's CEO of Goldmoney. Daryl has driven payment and commerce innovations in this country for years. He was part of the past 15 years, including the launch and the leadership of PayPal here in Canada. He's worked with industry leaders, he's worked with entrepreneurs, he's sort of worked on all sides to bring people together to understand how these systems need to work. He's also part of the launches of eBay and Chapters Indigo online in Canada, so he knows a great deal about this process and the consumer-facing side of this business. And I hope you join me in welcoming Daryl.
All right. Thanks, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the great intro. My career, I've been very fortunate to work on a number of different industries and figuring out where the white space exists in the industry, focusing very much on the innovation around transforming experiences and transforming and dealing wherever the inefficiencies are. Started off in retail, moved that to more mass market e-commerce and how do you scale large software platforms. So I'm less of a financial services guy, I'm more of a technology and software platform person. Took that into payments on the PayPal side. As I kind of evolved in my own career, I tried to decide where do I want to focus the rest of my time or the next chapter in my career, going from commerce and retail to payments, looking at money itself and understanding what exactly are the inefficiencies around money. That's funny, every time I talk, our lawyers put this up, say, hey, you never know what Daryl's going to say on stage, so you've been warned ahead of time. So let's just get into it, since this is rapid fire. So what exactly is money? It's funny, I ask financial services people this all the time, what is money? And academically, you can say good money derives of three different things: a unit of account, a medium of exchange, and a very good store of value. But that sounds very academic from a definition standpoint. I really want to get to the crux of it. I'm like, what does actually money represent? And the simplest answer I could come up with is money equals stored labor. You sell a good, you deliver a service, you put in some time, you get compensated for it, and that represents your stored labor. And typically we store it in our national currencies and deal with that from a regulatory standpoint. But if you think of where we're moving as a society, money needs more than ever before. We're in the era of global citizenship, right? We have more friends and family abroad than we've ever had before. We travel more internationally, and we certainly do more business internationally than we've ever done before. And we think of money as a technology. I know Fintech is a buzzword here, and we're here to learn about a lot of the latest and greatest, but there's always been waves and cycles of innovation that have happened in financial services. I mean, the guy that created the check a long time ago, he was a cool dude at the time. He was like, look at this piece of paper, I can just sign my name down, throw some zeros, and hand over $10,000. That was very cool innovation at the time. Same thing with the ATM, same thing with the plastic card, the chip and pin card, the internet wallet, wallets and paying on your phone and paying on your watch, and on and on and on. So there's always been great innovation, but when you actually step back and look at these, they weren't really innovating money. This was all about communication protocols. It was about transferring the movement of money from point A to point B, or device to device, and the interconnectivity as we become more connected. Underneath that, they all sat on top of the existing central bank stack that we know that had some inefficiencies around it. And global trade, as that continues to accelerate, current national currencies and current settlement systems still have some challenges. And on top of that, you have the high cost of exchange rates and price volatility. At the end of the day, people are not looking to exchange currencies, they're looking to exchange value. And when we think of retail banks and fintech and that argument of where the divide is and where the strengths and weaknesses, I've always been a big believer of kind of getting to the crux of that. Retail banking, the talent mix, just be transparent here. We have to look in the mirror and say, within a bank, is the talent mix risk adverse and not suited enough for the rapid change that's happening within financial services? Maybe, maybe not. It's certainly a challenge that exists today, though. Having a legacy technology stack or bank system so complex, from idea to prioritization to productization to commercialization, does it take up to 2 years in order to get something in market? And the cost associated with that is just, it's too much. And no clear strategic vision for digital. I can't tell you how many blockchain experts that have been hired by banks that I've talked to over the last 6 months that have come to us and asked, maybe they want to leverage our technology or infrastructure or ideas. And the first question I always ask them is, what problem are you trying to solve? And it's amazing how hard of a question that is for them to answer. That scares me. Doing technology for technology's sake is not the right answer. And being innovative just to check a box is not the right answer. But there are a lot of strengths, obviously: customer relationships, reputation, trustworthiness, and stability, and the tenure that banks have with their customers, the expertise and compliance, and the capital investment capacity are all great things to be able to provide a lot of innovation. Looking at fintech, it's the exact inverse of that, right? The challenges that fintech has today: capital up front is early stage investment, capital and constraint for fintech. And the reality is, if you're not at scale or you can't scale, you're irrelevant in fintech. You don't want to be the fly in the elephant's back. It's a category you need to have scale. And compliance, they usually think about after the fact, once they get scale, and at that point it's too late. Trust does not occur at the speed of technology. You can build technology really fast, but customers, in order to embrace you, that doesn't happen at the same pace. So it's a challenge for a lot of fintechs. Productizing, a lot of times the products I see in fintech, they're just too niche. A lot of times I say, you're not even a company, you're a feature. So you have to think a lot broader. The opportunity with fintech is you're actually not even limited regionally the way banks are, but a lot of times they kind of put themselves in that box, which I never understand. But on the upside, they have a large capacity to innovate, good culture, and technology expertise. The reality, though, when you look at banks and fintech firms, they actually have more business interests in common than they have issues that divide them. And we'll get into that a little bit more and how that can actually work for both sides of the party. So I asked a little bit earlier about what is money. Here now focusing on gold from this latest company, Goldmoney. I could ask 10 people in the room here what gold is. I'd probably get 10 different answers. It's a commodity. It's an investment. It's an insurance hedge. It's jewelry. It's a pet rock. I've heard lots of different answers. The way to think of gold Gold is money without borders, full stop. It is not domiciled against any specific national economy. It's solidified in physics and math. It's permanent units of energy and labor. It's a physical element that's immortal to time and oxygen. And if we had more time, I'd probably go into the physics and do a full physics class on that, because it's been fascinating to, even for myself, to understand the history of money and why gold was the perfect money for many years. This is an eyesore as a slide. I'm not going to go through this, but I'm just saving these slides, so if anyone wants this presentation afterwards, I'd encourage everyone to read kind of some of the stuff that's on here. But if you actually just kind of break back and look from a physics standpoint and understand our Earth, some of the smartest minds, Aristotle, Darwin, Newton, Einstein, they've kind of been able to dissect this Earth into 92 compounds and elements, right? Zinc, iron, ore, copper, gold, silver, water, air. That's basically what makes up this Earth. And of all the 92 elements on this Earth, there's only one of them that's both rare and immortal, and that's gold. And so it's fascinating to think an element that actually doesn't oxidize. Everything else has a life cycle. If I was to exchange tomatoes for sheep, tomatoes last 2 weeks. The sheep might go bad, whatever the case may be. If I was to have gold in my pocket, oh, 1 second, I've got gold in my pocket. This has outlived any bit of technology that we're talking at this conference. I could drop this in the ocean and pick it up 1,000 years from now, and it hasn't changed. It's the only element that doesn't, it's immune to oxygen and time. And why that's fascinating, because it actually becomes the benchmark on the value of things over time. So if you think of gold not as a commodity, as a currency, gold unequivocally, from a mathematics standpoint, is the world's best performing currency by a wide margin. I can throw up a chart here that shows everything against euros, Japanese yen, Brazilian real, US dollars, British pounds, Canadian dollars. It doesn't matter what point of time, gold has stood the test of time from a mathematics standpoint. I'll just use kind of some examples to put in some context and relevance. So let's use a 30-year scale. So if we rewind 30 years in our life, everyone in the room here is either in their teens or in their 20s or in their 30s. So trying to give some context and price of things. If you think of something like a movie ticket 30 years ago was about $2.75. Now it's about 10 to 12 bucks. So it's gone up 5x in price. And you're like, oh, wow, I remember back in the day when a movie ticket was whatever price. If I was to equate that in gold, what was the price of a movie ticket 30 years ago in gold? 0.26 grams. What is it today? Almost exactly the same. I can go in, I can give you 1,000 examples of this. Fuel, it's more than doubled in price. It's actually gone down in the price of gold. Transportation, a pickup truck, 3 times the price than it was 30 years ago. It's actually gone down. If I was to peg my life and my store and my labor in gold as opposed to a currency. Same thing with food. Food probably more than anything else. Here in Calgary, we all know our steaks, right? Protein prices are up 6% every year for the last 5 years. It's kind of bizarre to think of it that way, but if I was to look at a price of steak in gold, it's the same price today as it was 30 years ago. And there has been some innovation around money. So obviously over the last 5 years, cryptocurrencies, for all the hype they get, the total market cap of all of them, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XPR, is about $11 billion now. Conversely, if I look at the size of other markets, the physical cash market, if I was to add it all up, euros, British pounds, all the different currencies, add it up, stack them all up, they're about, actually it's gone down a little bit since the slide was made, it's about $6.5 trillion. The physical gold market is actually closer to $8 trillion with more than $70 billion bought and sold every day. Who owns all this stuff? Governments, banks, treasury departments, high net worth individuals. This is actually the second most liquid instrument in the world, yet most individuals don't have access to it. But using gold as money hasn't been easy or practical for centuries with no modern banking or payment applications until now. And so this platform that we've been building out, we launched this company. We're a Canadian company headquartered in Toronto. The platform is called BitGold. We've had a very successful year in our first year as a fintech company, one of the fastest growing fintech companies on the planet. I won't go through all the whole history here, but within our first year, we raised about $70 million in capital, went public on the Toronto Stock Exchange. We hit more than 1 million customers in over 150 countries around the world. Essentially, the way it works, it's an online savings and payments platform domiciled in gold, physical gold bullion. We've been able to create a real-time settlement and exchange system. So the first thing we did is we partnered with all the bullion banks around the world who have all their gold sitting in vaults located with Brinks around the world. And we created a real-time exchange system and settlement system. So I can literally log on, much like a PayPal account. If you think of PayPal, Instead of think of PayPal sitting on top of the central bank stack, think of it sitting on top of one global currency, being gold. So I can pull out my credit card or my debit card or link my bank account. Say if I want to buy $50 worth of gold, transfer it from my bank account and from a Canadian dollar balance to a gold balance. I can do that. The physical gold actually gets allocated to you within a vault within seconds. I now have a gold holding sitting for me in a vault. Historically, 5-day settlement for gold. Now we've got it down to minutes, so basically real-time settlement. So now I have a balance sitting in an account. If I want to use that balance as currency, there's a few different things we've done. So we partnered with MasterCard globally. So I have my gold balance sitting in a cloud. If I want to be able to spend that at any time, at any point of sale, it sells my gold for whatever currency that transaction is, but without having to pay for an exchange. So here I'm speaking in Calgary this week. Next week I'm speaking in Madrid. I can use the same card. I put it into a point of sale machine. It sells my gold for euros directly. If I'm in New York the following week after that, it sells my gold for US dollars. I'm never paying foreign exchange. I'm never having to go through all these different systems. So as a company, though, we are evolving to a brand and service unification. So BitGold was kind of our initial name for the first year. Since name changing is kind of the theme of the conference, we figured we'd do that here as well. And so we have rebranded ourselves to Goldmoney. It is going to be several different product offerings for personal accounts, business accounts, and wealth accounts. In our first year, we've done very, as I mentioned earlier, pretty successful, a little more than 1 million users, close to $1.7 billion in deposits, and over $50 million in transactions on the platform. And why that's very interesting from a transaction platform, people are starting to use it as a remittance rail automatically. So if I need to send money to my sister in Australia, any other conventional method, I have to convert funds from one foreign exchange method to another and go through different money exchange services. Here I can buy gold, send the value of my gold to, say, my sister in Australia. The physical gold doesn't have to move. On the ledger, it just shifts from one person's title ownership to another. She can either keep a gold balance or sell it for Australian dollars immediately for 1%. So you can move money to any person around the world from any two currencies instantly for 1%. So you basically created a completely different settlement system. So Goldmoney will give citizens worldwide more direct control over their purchasing power than they've ever had before. If you've ever been in a market with currency volatility and everything that's going on around the world, being able to have, we don't aspire that the world's coming to the end or the world needs to go back to the gold standard or any of those type of things. But we do believe people should have a choice on being able to figure out how they want to transact with people around the world, how to be able to preserve their purchasing power. And the rules have changed around the world. People are much more empowered than they've ever been in the past. And being able to use their money. But when you look at cross-border payments today, there's just all this friction that exists in the system, either higher processing costs, time required for funds to clear, difficult tracking the payment progress because there's so many counterparties involved in every transaction. It's actually quite fascinating to see how complicated it is when it doesn't need to be that way. If you think of any cross-border transaction from a B2C standpoint, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, processing a credit card is roughly 2 to 3%. Then converting those funds from one currency to another 2 to 3%, and often there's some sort of cross-border premium interchange in there as well. Right, so the same thing that works in the scenario here, I can basically pay with gold money. If I want to accept a transaction from a customer in Brazil, rather than me taking on Brazilian real as a currency and having to deal with that volatility, that Brazilian just buys gold, sends me gold as a payment. I can either keep a gold balance, which I might want to do versus my local currency, and reuse that, or sell it instantly for 1%. So you can process any e-commerce transaction from anyone around the world for 1%. So think of it as a global debit network that hasn't existed before. And so there's a few different flavors of that. There's a Goldmoney personal account, a Goldmoney business account that I talked about, and a wealth account that will extend it to different services and offerings. Of course, compliance and detection are around that. One of the key parts of our system is we work with global operations around the world to have one of the most robust anti-money laundering and KYC systems around. I'm going to fast forward through some of this stuff, but we've been pretty excited on the traction that we've been getting around the world, both in Asia and Europe and here in North America. The system, as I mentioned, getting good traction both on deposits and transaction volume. And geographically, we're expanding quite a bit around the world as well. So going back to this idea of banks and fintech firms have more business interests in common than that divide them. One of the things that I looked at this is saying that we're seeing genuine interest from users around the world. And it's been interesting to see the action and the conversations we're having with banks around the world saying, look, we want to help our customers. We want to give them a choice and opportunity to have another deposit option. Can you work with us to set up a gold balance within our bank? So if I have a Canadian dollar account, a US dollar account, can I have a gold account? And make it very seamless for my banking customers to move from one currency to another and think of gold as a currency. And I can then use that to be able to transmit as a global remittance rail to anyone else around the world as well, solving a lot of the problems that exists for banks today. You know, I had an interesting question asked me the other day saying, Daryl, if you worked at a bank, how would you do things at a bank? There's all this friction between fintech and banks. The way I look at it is I think banks should become platforms. They should think of themselves as platforms. Going back to what I said earlier on their strengths, they're very good and strong at their bank licensing, their customer database, and their relationship management. Their compliance and KYC is very good. They've got large capital, and they've got good transactions and products. But they're getting chewed away from all these different areas, right? Investing, wealth management, payments, crowdfunding, lending, loaning, insurance. Why not turn yourself into a platform and enable all of these participants, but making a process very seamless for a fintech company to participate with a bank, and then have all the fintech companies compete with each other. And you take a piece of each one of those, actually. Maybe I shouldn't be telling banks how to do this, I don't know. But I do think from a strategic standpoint, the banks that are going to win are going to think of this fintegration type model, right? It's giving, you're about servicing your customer and providing choice and opportunity. So being able to vet them with all these different options, you can clearly turn all of fintech into a marketplace for your customers, but still own your customer relationships. And that's how we're looking at our approach with banks ourselves. So our first year, we've been able to scale up the business quite quickly. How we're moving forward is we are opening up our network as to integration with banks. So being able to provide personal payments around the world as a global remittance rail, new deposit products as gold savings for banks around the world, B2C e-commerce, B2B invoicing, rewards redemption, payroll, and a number of other different solutions. So we're pretty excited with where we've come so far, and we're pretty excited on providing some thought leadership on how fintech and banks can operate together and service customers better. That's it. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Daryl. I love an innovation that goes back to Aristotle. That's always good. Collaboration is going to be one of the themes that I think will be discussed here and increasingly important as we kind of move forward towards the real winning platforms.